What's up, gang? Welcome to week, I believe it's 9. I'm not actually, I don't remember. Pretty sure it's 9. But we're right at the meat of it. So if we look at the course here, we got our intro day here, chemistry, organic chemistry, cells, tissues, spooky bones, small muscles. And now we getting right into the center of things, right into the core, the blood and the heart. I got a couple of videos here I want to kick things off with. Boom, what's this? Look at that. This is a video I took of tadpoles with their hearts beating. So this is a little tadpole eye. This would be a little tadpole mouth. This would be its digestive system. And this is its little 3-chambered heart just cranking away. Thump, 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 thump. You can see the blood in it. Look at that. And if you look real close, you can actually see the vasculature of this. What is this thing doing? Your whole life, your heart is just thumping away for you. Whether you want it to or not, there it goes. Pretty nifty. Here's another video I took of the tadpole's tail. So we're all the way down at the tail of the tadpole. And this here would be an artery, and then this would be a vein. Arteries are always deeper compared to veins. And those little kind of streaks that you see going by, those are the blood cells. Pretty crazy that you can actually see this. You can see these red blood cells just moving through the cardiovascular system of this tiny, tiny, tiny little tadpole. Why are we doing this? Before we get into the why, here's just a cool little picture of a kind of surgery infrared camera, just showing you how really this is the heart here, and the heart is also feeding itself. The heart first feeds itself, and this is kind of like an image overlay of this. I just think this is cool technology, so surgeons can basically make sure they're getting the right little artery or vein. They're removing the correct one or whatever it is that they need to be doing. It's pretty nifty. And then here I got a nice little kind of, internal view of a human heart beating. So this is like a side view of a person with its heart. You can see how it's kind of laid down flat. So this would be the front of the person. This would be the back of the person. You see their spinal cord. And you just see how just like freaking bonkers this thing is, and just how much force. Like you can literally see the blood coming through this and through these. You can see it expanding and shrinking. As this heart is beating, and as I'm sitting here talking right now, my heart is doing this exact same thing, just forever and always until I cease to function. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy indeed. Okay, and then we talked about cardiac cells quite a bit. Cardiac muscle. So this whole thing is made out of muscle, and it's made out of these individual muscle cells. And I said if you take 2 of these muscle cells and put them in a dish and they find each other, they'll start to just contract together. The heart does not need the brain to beat like this. We could remove this heart, put it in a box with fake blood and oxygenate it and all that, and it will just keep going. As long as we feed it, it will beat. And so some researchers have played with this. I don't know if you guys can hear this. I don't know if there's volume, but what they did is they take this little gelatin-based substrate, this little material, and they put cardiac cells on it, and then they put it in oxygenated kind of media, with nutrients and things like that, sugar, and they made a little heart fish. So these muscle cells will contract, and you can see that they find this rhythm, and they make this little gelatin fish swim. That's all powered by heart cells, cardiac muscle cells, on a weird gelatin fish. and that thing will swim around dishes, and you could catch it with a hook. Look at it. It's just going. Boom, boom, lum, dum, lum, dum. Pretty crazy. That's the hook of the lecture of how crazy your heart is. Now let's get into it. We're going to talk about blood first, but just more general about circulatory systems in general. Let's talk about these. Not all animals have a circulatory system. So if we go back to our good old friend, the sea sponge, which we visited back when we were talking about tissues, you know, this thing has water circulating through it, but it has no actual defined system. Basically, water just flows into it and then flows out the top from the beating of these flagella. But there's no specialized system that it has. It doesn't even have really true tissues, so how could it have a circulatory system? Although even this needs things to circulate through it so that these cells could get oxygen, right? So that they can do cellular respiration. You know, don't make me go all the way back. I'm going to go all the way back here. Cellular respiration, you know, what do we need here to make the most of our ATP? What do we need to accept the electrons and protons right at the very end? We need oxygen. We need oxygen. This is kind of one of the whole purposes of your blood in your heart is to provide your cells with this bad boy. Okay? That's what this is all about. So the mitochondria is really at the center of, like, your heart exists to feed the mitochondria. That's really why it exists. It's to feed your mitochondria. So in a weird way, we've developed an entire cardiovascular system to feed that little whipped bacteria that we brought into our cells. It's kind of weird. Now we've developed this whole system to feed that thing that we made our slave. It's pretty weird. Okay, so something like a sea sponge has no circulatory system. But then there are some animals that, rather than having blood, so a echinoderm, a starfish, these are pretty nifty guys. I recommend going to the ocean and finding some of these in some tide pools or going to the aquarium, checking those out. These guys got little tubes feet. And these little tubes feet are like little pumps. So they can go like this, and they pump water up and in and through this whole little system here. And that's how they feed their cells. So they don't use blood, but they use water. And they have this tube feet circulatory system. It's not a cardiovascular system because they don't really have a heart. They have these tiny little tube feet. It's pretty nifty. And they actually allow them to move around too. I'm going to show you this cool video of an anemone being hunted by a echinoderm. I just think this is really cool, and I want to watch it with you. This is like this is what I call a real pokebattle. It's one of my favorite videos. So here we have an anemone. Is this actually playing sound?
An easy meal for any determined predator.
Yes, okay.
Today, it's being stalked by a stealthy foe, the sea star Dermasterius.
Boy, be hustling. This is a time lapse. Look at him, 2 feet.
Sampling the water with its sensory tentacles, the sea star inches toward its prey. Stamphia remains unaware of the approaching danger. But when Dermasterius comes close enough to touch it, Stamphia springs into action.
Sting attack. They have tiny little stinger cells, so that's what he's doing there. He's stinging them. But then he's like, you know what? This battle's, I'm not going to win it.
In a stunning defensive maneuver, Stamphia frees itself from the rock and swims away.
What? You're telling me that anemones can just up and run?
Anemones that can actually swim.
Pretty crazy. That thing is an animal. And anemones, God, it's hard to say. Echinoderms have a water-based circulatory system. anees don't. They're kind of like a sea sponge. They don't have a circulatory system. They just kind of have this cavity in the center, and all their cells just kind of breathe from fluid coming in and out. But these are animals too, and they have senses. You could tell that it could sense that starfish was there. They have a defense system. They can sting these with tiny little metaphors is what they're called. They're like little harpoons that inject, they wrap around and kind of burn their predators. And then it can up and swim away. So they can actually, move, change their shape, swim. It's pretty freaking bananas. And that's really just an excuse that I could show that video. Because I think it's incredible. Okay, so what are we going to talk about now? Well, let's go to this. We're going to be talking about blood here. So let's just talk about, where is my, sorry. Okay, so let's talk in general about our blood. I'm going to pull up a little picture of blood here. Right here. Okay, and we're going to go through these, kind of talk about what all these are, what all these different components are. But we'll give you a little bit of an overview here. All right, so we've got these things here, which are called our red blood cells. Another word for those is erythrocytes, and I might be spelling that wrong. No, I spelled it right. Red blood cells / erythrocytes. And what these do is they carry our oxygen and also CO2. They also help carry our CO2, which is our waste product to get rid of. Oxygen and carbon dioxide. I'll spell it out. Carbon dioxide. Okay. Here in the center we have not one, but two white blood cells. White blood cells. They look purpley under the microscope because of the way we stain them. White blood cells, and these protect us from infection / parasites / cancer. Parasites, that's not how you spell that at all. Parasites. No, I really don't know how to spell. Sorry, isn't parasite. I really don't know how to spell that word. Parasites. Nope. Parasites, nope. I gotta Google this, I'm sorry. I really don't know how to spell this. Malaria parasite. I think it's SITE. Yeah, parasites. That's where I was going wrong. SITE. Parasites. Okay. And cancer. All right, so we're going to talk about those. We've also got these little guys here. These are called our platelets. Platelets. And these clot our blood. They prevent us from bleeding out. And then last but not least, we've got this, which is called our plasma, which is like a fluid substrate, but also contains it contains nutrients, and things called antibodies, as well as other protein to protect us. So they're kind of also part of the plasma is also part of our protection system. Nutrients to feed us, antibodies to protect us. All right, so that's what blood is composed of, and I've already kind of talked about some of the functions of blood. Let's just make sure we list those out. Give some basics on blood. So blood, what kind of tissue is it? It's a connective tissue, right? And the main thing is that this does is it transports nutrients and gases. That's the main function of what it does to feed our cells. Main thing it does. Additionally, like I talked about up here, it also helps protect us from infection, etc. Don't need to type it all out again. Helps regulate our body temperature. So if I'm really hot, what'll happen is all of my capillaries and veins down in my hands and arms will all dilate and get bigger to dump more of my heat out into the environment. I'll get redness in my ears, as well as then I'll also start to sweat to help remove some of that heat from my body. Whereas the opposite's true. If I get real cold, all of these veins and capillaries constrict and arteries constrict. They get smaller so that less blood is going out to my limbs and more of my heat stays in my core. Regulates our pH. We'll talk about that in detail when we get to the respiratory system. Maintains our salt levels, so our osmotic pressure, and clots to prevent fluid loss. Trying to think if there's any other things that it does. That seems pretty good. Okay. All right, so let's break this down. So we've got our blood here, and let's take we're going to actually do this in lab. It's pretty cool. So we got a tube. Let's say we got 2 tubes. It's a bendy tube. It's okay though. All right, and this one, it's got blood in it, like so. And we take it and we spin it down. We spin this bad boy. We spin it in a centrifuge. Spin in a centrifuge. Centrifuge. What happens is all the heavy stuff, so the cells, will sink down to the bottom because they're heavier than the plasma. And it ends up looking something like this. So we'll have, don't need that. All of our red blood cells kind of be there. Then we'll have our white blood cells right here. I'm going to draw those in gray. Get out of here, Nat. Get. And then our plasma, liquidy part will all be on top. So like this. So we will have plasma. And in humans, this is about 55%. And then we have white blood cells, which is approximately 1%. And then we have red blood cells, which is approximately 44%. And that's in humans. So this is in humans, human blood. Okay. Well, let me pull this up over here. Bring this down here. Okay, I don't know if you remember this guy, but this here was this is a white blood cell here. This is a macrophage kind of chewing up this bacteria down here. And this part here was the plasma of our blood. And you can see that this liquidy part of our blood, it looks like a clear, you'll actually see this. We're going to do this in lab. It's called a hematocrit, and we count basically the percentage of red blood cells that an organism has. I think we do it for sheep's blood. You can see that this clear part of the blood that you're going to actually be able to see through is just full of protein. And these things, we're going to talk about these. Like here's one here. And this one actually is pretty special because it forms a bunch. They look like little Ys, but they're all connected together. These are called antibodies. Here's another one. Here's another one. And these recognize certain particles. Here's actually one where it's two connected end to end. Here's kind of the whole little ring of them. Here's one. Your body, your blood, your plasma is just full of antibodies. That's the point. And these help recognize things like bacteria and viruses. They're part of our immune system. They help our immune cells say like, oh, this is definitely a bacteria. Eat it. If there's an antibody attached to it, eat this thing. Eat it up now. So even here's two attached end to end. Even our clear part of our blood is packed full of protein. So it's not just this kind of empty, watery liquid. Okay, I think we'll end this one here. Then we're going to talk about red blood cells, white blood cells, and then kind of a whole little thing on other topics. All right, I'll see you guys in the next lectures.